now and whenever you're ready.
I love the beginning part of
Yeah.
it, like really, like you mentioned, okay, we're gonna start with their minds on, and then right away, something that they really connect with. And then all of a sudden throwing them for a loop, like.
Yeah, that little shock value.
The shock value, yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
could
great.
tell that the kids were trying to, like, they were answering, but it was, and I have no way to prove this, but in the back of their minds, it seems like they were trying to guess,
Where are we
like, what,
going?
yeah, what's gonna happen with this conversation about food, and, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Well, and the one girl too, how she thought it would be neat to try the gorilla meat,
Mhm.
where I would have been like, "Are you kidding me?" So it was interesting, even the different reactions to the.
And I also thought it was really interesting that Catherine actually had to go from gorillas to dogs to get more of a sort of reaction in terms of, no, we don't eat dogs.
The, like, empathy vote?
Yeah, that little
Yeah.
empathy piece, because they were like, oh, well, why not gorillas? That doesn't seem like that bad. Maybe I'll try it out.
Yeah.
But as soon as dogs were brought up, then the kids were
Oh,
like,
no.
that is not okay.
Mhm.
But, you know, if you think about the world, why is that not okay in terms of different cultures eating different animals? But that was interesting. You had to take it that one step further to sort of get them to rethink what they were.
And then also identifying that you went from the extraordinary to the ordinary, like really pointing that out to them.
Yeah. I wondered if, and again, this is a time thing, so there's not always time to do this, but I wonder if letting them come up with the purpose of the text to see if they had heard of, like, text to entertain and texts to inform and text to, like, just to see before you say, tell them what they're supposed to be looking for in the text, maybe see if they want to, like, when you're reading, do you ever think about the author's purpose for writing, and just see what they know, like, especially from my perspective, because I'm involved with these students in a different capacity, so, like, for different subjects, so I'm always interested to know what they bring from other subject areas, or if they've seen, like, or studied text type or text purpose.
Like, would
before.
they have been able to identify that this is an opinion piece?
Yeah.
Or a
Right.
persuasive
Yeah.
piece?
Yeah,
even
or
to
even
identify.
list, or even, like, why do authors write texts in a particular way, or have you heard of different purposes for writing, and, like, and just to see if they could, yeah, exactly, come up with the fact that it was for persuasive before being told it was for persuasive. Yeah.
I did like, though, how she made the connections with the writing process and the reading process, because they're two different processes that are happening in the brain of the student. But for them to start identifying that when you are writing an opinion piece, you want to show both sides of the issue, but then put forth your strongest point and try to persuade. So you have the sort of reflective element of them, thinking about what they're actually reading and how it's affecting them as a reader, but also what would you do if you were the writer and you had to try to persuade.
Yeah.
And so they had to sort of identify those elements of what makes good persuasive writing.
Mhm. And telling them cause versus effect, and the color coding.
I loved
Yeah,
that
the
highlighter.
color
That
coding was
highlighter
good.
technique was
Yeah.
fabulous, that they understood that blue is for why, which is the cause, and yellow is for effect. That not only did they show that they were different, very different things
Yeah.
that they're looking for in the text, but then
Yeah.
also make the connection between
Yeah.
which comes first, which comes second,
Yeah.
and how they impact each other.
Uh-huh.
That was a fabulous technique. I really
And
liked.
I like too how some kids could do both at the same time, and how she identified that, no, I would have to do one and then the other.
Yes, neat.
And I think that
Neither
that's
was
good,
wrong.
and that neither one of those is wrong, and
Mhm.
it is good to also sort of show, well, sometimes it's easier to isolate one thing first and then do the other, but kids seem to have that, ability to sort of quickly go between two different things, so maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a product of their.
Well, and then she made sure to confirm if they really did, which is something I think is very important. She released the students to try it independently, like, without her guidance. She said,
You can work
okay, now
together.
we're gonna see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
because then you
working on it.
really can gauge how their ability to process what you've just, like, the part of the skill or the entire skill that was just taught, you get to see, can they actually do it on their own. I loved the language from both the students and the teacher. even repeat, like using synonyms to come up with certain things, or like the word thesis and
Yes.
bias. And,
What the author has to prove instead of always
Mhm.
saying the word thesis, yes. I
Yeah.
also really loved the leading questions because they were so open-ended. Students would say something and then the teacher would say, well, why? What if? Even if? And there was no ending of those questions. There was no definitive answer. Often the response would be, let's see if you're right. Let's go back to the text and see if you're right. There was no good answer, yes, keep going. It was just let's go back to the text
Well,
and
and
see.
we often do that, right? When we have students and we say, oh, good answer, they're looking for that affirmative instead of just sort of accepting that that's their opinion or whatever. I find that a hard thing to stop doing sometimes because you want to encourage them to even talk about it.
Because the kids were definitely talking and talking.
They
Just
had
by
great
just putting
discussion.
one word questions in there, it kind of get things going.
Oh, yeah.
So. What I also liked is that the turn and talk within the small group. Instead, like I always use it in the large group. I never thought of using it in a guided group, especially since like when I do the guided reading, it's like they just think it's just them, right? But then it's just blank faces staring at you at times. But then with the turn and talk, it still allows them for the opportunity to, hey, hear someone else's opinion, and then go from there.
Yeah.
You can still listen into both sets of groups.
Well, and there were good strategies, like that was a good strategy, the highlighters was a good strategy. Also the, just when she summarized the main points, and, just giving them, if you were doing note-taking, what would be the main points that you would put down, right? So if you can model that in a smaller group, then when they go the next time to try that independently, they might be more successful, using those strategies of the highlighter, then going back in and finding their main points
Yeah.
too, right? So that was good modeling, I like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.